the first case up in this police officer corruption night from Brendan himself. We're going to be talking about the Baltimore police.
Just in general?
Yeah, in general. And I mean, that's our starting point. So, all right. When anybody talks about officers, corrupt officers, okay, there is a couple places that come to mind. One of them, New York, they had a big giant, actually two big giant scandals. Another one is the LAPD, where there was a big giant scandal around corruption and 70 officers ended up getting held accountable. And then the most recent one is Baltimore, okay? Baltimore, the gun trace task force. It is so widely known. There are a ton of documentaries and shows and reports and everything else written on it because of how disgusting it was. We never really know how much money these officers stole. But here's what's interesting, you guys. Part of the reason why I wanted to do all these topics tonight is in relation to the Idaho 4 case, because a question keeps coming up over and over and over and over. And I know I've done police corruption before, and we talked about direct examples of police corruption and what they looked like and how they did it and things like that. All right. Well, this one here, I want to be able to compare these stories with some of the behaviors that we're seeing in the Idaho 4 case and some of the behaviors that we're seeing from the cops in the body cam footage before in comparison to what we're seeing in the body cam footage now. Like the night and day difference in attitude makes me feel like there is a cover up here, and it's not necessarily a cover up like they're trying to slam this case on Brian Kohberger and just set him up as a patsy. I mean, there could be something completely different that they just don't want looked into, right? And so many people have theorized the drug angle because there's good evidence on that, and we just need to dig into it. So the first piece of evidence in the comparison of tonight is the Baltimore Gun Trace Task Force. Now, I have a really awesome timeline here, which walks us through it. Now, I also just recently watched the Gun Trace Task Force series that's on HBO. It's called We Own This City. And the guy from the zombie show, what's that zombie show called again? Walking Dead. Walking Dead. So the police officer friend from The Walking Dead was played by John Bernthal. And he plays the main offender in this. And this is a true story. And it is insane, right? And he plays the officer Wayne Jenkins, which was the leading officer in the Gun Trace Task Force at the time of the whole scandal and everything like that. But have you heard anything about it?
I've heard it before that it was like it was that documentary or show or whatever it is was incredible in showing what it was actually like.
Yeah.
But I don't know much about the details surrounding this situation.
Okay. And I mean, I've wondered that too, if intentionally this didn't get a lot of attention. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Do you know who Freddy Gray is?
No.
Okay. So we'll get into it. So in 2007, Gun Trace Task Force established by Baltimore Police Department. The Gun Trace Task Force was created by the Baltimore Police Department to curb illegal gun purchases by targeting straw purchasers and illicit gun dealers. In addition to Baltimore City detectives, the elite plainclothes unit included officials from the Maryland State Police and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF. Within a few years, staffing shortages and budget cuts would shrink the force only to BPD officers. Some of the crimes committed by the officers of the Gun Trace Task Force occurred before they were officially part of the unit. So ultimately what ended up happening here is Baltimore's police department was corrupt, like the whole thing. So the fact that we only have like 20 officers that were held accountable here is insane. Absolutely insane. And when they started getting investigated, once these guys got arrested, they rolled over on each other. That's why we know so much, is they all told on each other trying to get the best deal. The one officer that held out, the leader, the sergeant, had moved up 2 spots into a people management role, Wayne Jenkins. Crazy, absolutely insane. And Wayne Jenkins was taught by his training officer to be corrupt in these ways. So like what it shows when Wayne Jenkins was first being hired is Baltimore Police Department was the tool of the politicians. Okay. So the governor was trying to get into office or stay in office during re-election, and they needed their arrest records to spike. Okay, so you know what the Baltimore Police Department would do every night is they'd go down to the hood, arrest everybody that was out on the street, everybody. And in the hood, people hang out outside, dude. They hang out on their stoops. They have block parties. That's where block parties originated from. They have even in the summer, they'll take off like the fire hydrant, people playing in the street. Like all that stuff is real stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And these officers would go down there and arrest them because that was a statistic. Everybody. If you were out on the street, you were getting arrested. And what they were doing, this is the shady part. What they were doing is they would be taken in to holding, held overnight till they get in front of a judge. A judge sees that their charges are not true and no evidence to back it, and then they get let out.
But that statistic is still there.
Yes. So it makes it look like these cops are doing their job. The politicians' rates go up, you know, and they could say, "Oh, look at me! Look how great our cops are doing." When they're solving nothing, they're making people in the community lose their jobs because they have to no call, no show. You know, if they're arrested or whatever, they're arresting regular, normal, everyday citizens, and they're turning everybody against them. It immediately becomes an us versus them atmosphere.
Yeah, they're literally bought and paid for. That's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And this is when Wayne Jenkins is in training, okay?
And that's the guy played by the Walking Dead guy?
That is the guy played by the Walking Dead guy. Absolutely.
Yep. So that's why the whole place was corrupt, is they're bought and paid for. Not only that, but also they're being trained to be corrupt.
Oh, dude.
So every new officer coming in is corrupt automatically because of their training.
When this whole thing broke out, I should have wrote this down and I didn't, but multiple officials ended up catching charges for tax evasion, things like wire fraud, theft, all these things. Like I'm talking up to the mayor, all the way up the chain, dude. Police commissioners turned over. One police commissioner was fired, and the city claims he quits. He claims he was fired. More than likely he was fired because he was a white guy, and like there were serious racial issues going on. And I get why they want to have, like, if the majority of your city is black and they're claiming that a police department is racist, you need a minority to connect with the community. And that is not saying that I'm not going down the political hole when I say this, but that is just the fact, because a lot of these people that have been in the hood don't feel like someone like myself, you know, that came from middle class and you know, would be able to relate. And I get that. Like, I get it. I understand it, because the whole goal is to serve the general public and the citizens, you know? So anyways, but going back here. So April 28th, 2010, officers chase and plant drugs on Umar Burley. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, Detective Ryan Gwynn, and Detective Sean Suter chase Umar Burley and Brent Matthews in their vehicles until he crashes into another car. The collision kills the other driver, an 86-year-old who is the father of another police officer. Jenkins immediately arranges for 32 grams of heroin to be planted in Burley's car and discovered by Suter. Burley is arrested and charged with state manslaughter and federal drug drug charges. He reluctantly pleads guilty to both charges because he's told that no one would believe he was framed. Okay, little bit of backstory up until this time, right? Because I believe that Wayne Jenkins had already been on the force now for a long time. He's a sergeant at this point. He was the golden boy.
Wayne Jenkins?
Wayne Jenkins was the golden boy who could do no wrong. He had the best policing stats in the city, and if he wasn't dirty, he probably would have been a really good police officer, because everyone who talks about him says that he was able to see things. You know what I mean? There are people out there, and I'm pretty good at it. I wouldn't say I'm some expert. I didn't go to school for it, but because of my sales background, I can read body language and micro expression pretty good. You know what I mean? I'm assuming he had some similar technique where, you know, you can tell when someone's up to something that they shouldn't be up to, right? Now, whether you can actually pull them over and search them, completely different story. I'm not suggesting any of that, but he was able to see things other officers couldn't, right? However, he was dirty. So his stats were phenomenal. He was literally like carrying the department's arrest stats in this. So he was like untouchable. He got away with everything for so long. He would beat people up. He would rob people. He was doing all this dirt, dude. Yeah. And not just him, like 19 other officers. I think within this, 20 officers have been straight up arrested. I have no idea how many got let go. I couldn't find the exact number because this isn't information law enforcement wants out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But up until this point, he was the golden boy. So at this point, he is a sergeant, and he is the sergeant of the gun trace task force at this time, where he was in it and was trained how to be dirty in this. And their statement was like, it's all about the money. Everything. That was their goal in life, was all about the money.
Oh my gosh,
right?
it's like a gang, man.
It is a gang. It is literally a gang.
That's
exactly
a gang.
what they're doing. And what's interesting is we'll get to that point in 2015 here. But so Detective Herschel uses Young Moose's music videos against him. Detective Daniel Herschel uses music videos as evidence for numerous warrants against up-and-coming Baltimore rapper Young Moose. After arresting Moose's family in a raid, Herschel waits to serve Moose with an arrest warrant until the day before his concert with Lil Boozy at Baltimore Arena. The detective then acts to deny Moose bail by showing his videos to his probation officer. He finally is released weeks later. Enter the judge rules it be cruel and unusual to continue holding him. Early the next year, Moose releases a mixtape with the songs calling Herschel a racist B. Herschel continues leading raids on properties connected to Moose and his family. So, who's Herschel? Herschel's another key player in this, where he was known on the street. So in Baltimore, okay, cops abused everyone, and Herschel was overly aggressive. If anyone just talked crap to him, which, dude, if you're a police officer, you need to learn to be above words. Nothing should be able to get under your skin. Nothing. Anyone should be able to say anything and it never get under your skin. And you should be working on that and practicing that daily. But if anyone talked back to him, said anything to him, Herschel literally would beat the heck out of him. And they used to walk around Baltimore with these bats, like the nightsticks. Yeah. And put tons of people in the hospital. And what would happen is he would arrest them. So like on the TV show, I couldn't find any evidence saying this was true. But what Herschel would do is, let's say they pulled someone over, pulled them out of the car, and they're standing on the sidewalk. Herschel would go and walk up to them, like chest bump them, and say, oh, you just attacked an officer, so you're getting assault on a peace officer. And that's how he would get them arrested. And then he would beat the crap out of them. So assault on a peace officer, because then in the paperwork, he could say that his life felt in danger, and that would justify him beating him up. Then they would go to jail, where they were told, if you sign this document swearing that you won't sue the city of Baltimore, we'll let you out.
No way.
Yes. Yes. So shady, dude. So shady. So then they put him in a situation where it's either, hey, stay locked up, lose your job, lose any plans that you have in your normal life because you're a normal citizen, and have the ability to sue us, which then we don't know how long we're going to hold you in here for. We'll just hold you as long as we feel like it because we can. Or sign this where you can never bring up again the fact that we mistreated you, and then you can go out to your normal life. This guy, this rapper, started creating videos talking about Herschel because Herschel was like the lead officer in that area, and just saying how corrupt he is and abusive and all this stuff. And this is what happened. Us versus them, dude. And this is 2014. This is recent stuff, you guys.
Well, not that recent, but it's modern day. It's
less than 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
All
a big deal.
So this is huge, you guys.
It's not the 70s anymore.
Right. The killing of Freddy Gray. All right. Just quick rundown here. So Freddy Gray, on April 12, 2015, Freddy Carlos Gray Jr., a 25-year-old African-American, was arrested by the Baltimore Police Department over his legal possession of a knife. While in police custody, Gray sustained fatal injuries and was taken to the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center. Gray died on April 19, 2015. His death was ascribed to his severe injuries to his cervical spinal cord. He was beat up by cops for doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, kind of like Tyree Nichols.
Exactly. On April 21st, 2015, okay? Remember, this is April 27th. On April 21st, 2015, pending an investigation of the incident, 6 Baltimore police officers were suspended. The circumstances of the injuries were initially unclear. Eyewitness accounts suggested the officers used unnecessary force against Gray during the arrest, and claim denied by all officers involved. They said they didn't touch him. Commissioner Anthony Batts reported that contrary to police department policy, the officers did not secure Gray inside the van while driving to the police station. This policy had been put into effect 6 days prior to Gray's arrest. So, long story short, they beat the crap out of him for no reason. He was doing nothing wrong. He was walking down the street in the hood. So, his crime was either he was colored or lower income. Like, that was his crime. And they beat him up because he had a knife on him, legally, a legal-sized knife on him. Now, the prosecutors stated that they had probable cause to file criminal charges against the police officers, and the officer driving the van was charged with second-degree murder.
Dang.
The city erupted, blew up, huge riots, burning police cars, just what you expect to see in a riot. The people were tired. And I didn't say this when I was trying to describe Herschel, but he had over 30 complaints. When you were let out, you could file a complaint. And that follows their police record. He had over 30 complaints and was still working on the street. Insane, right? You know, it was so bad in Baltimore that they couldn't get jury panels because everyone who came forward said, like being honest, like they should be in court, and saying, I can't be impartial to a police officer. If a police officer is saying this happened, they're lying. So they couldn't find jury members in the whole city of Baltimore.
That's insane.
Dude, my jaw was on the floor the whole time watching this. And then we're on here like in the true crime community, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, but this is what I was thinking about myself. Like, we're trying to figure out if police corruption is even a reality. And you have a whole city. Baltimore's a massive city, dude.
I mean, I don't feel like I'm trying to figure that out. I feel like I know that it is. But I never thought that in today's age, it would be to that extent.
I'm telling you, I know.
Like, that's going really, really far, to the point that it's mind-blowing.
Yeah,
like,
they killed this guy. They killed Freddy Gray.
I think small town, like everybody's brother, sister, cousin, uncle.
I'm glad you said that.
I think like that. And that's very real, and I've experienced it myself. But this is like a huge city.
I have statements on here saying that small towns are more likely to be corrupt.
Yeah.
So if we're seeing this kind of grand scale corruption in
A
large
major
cities, imagine small
metropolitan
towns.
city. It's a major metropolitan city.
Dude.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, the whole city erupts, right? And so on April 27th, pharmacies looted after Freddy Gray's funeral. Now, this is up in the air. There's a lot of people who believe the police did this, okay?
Oh gosh.
But pharmacies and drug clinics were major targets for looters following Freddy Gray's funeral. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins capitalizes on the chaos, delivering trash bags of drugs taken from looters to his longtime friend, bail bondsman Donald Stepp. Stepp testifies later that Jenkins says, in parentheses, I got people coming out of these places. I've got an entire pharmacy. In the summer of 2015, then Commissioner Anthony Batts blamed the influx of looting drugs for a surge in murders. Ha! Funny, it was the police, dude. And did you know these police officers would pull people, like they were targeting high-profile drug dealers and not turning in the drugs and money, keeping them and selling them back on the street. Job insurance? Like, what are you guys doing?
For a minute, I thought, well, they probably didn't loot the pharmacies, but then he shows up with giant bags of drugs.
And bags.
Then he probably looted the pharmacies.
You know, Wayne Jenkins was getting so many drugs that this guy couldn't keep up with them, like couldn't sell them.
What?
Yes. That's how bad these guys were. There were times where they were taking millions of dollars.
Wow. Gross.
March 17, 2016, Young Moose and his family acquitted of 2014 charges. And remember, Young Moose's family was targeted because of Herschel. Because Young Moose wrote a song, Herschel's family was targeted and arrested for nothing. He was harassing entire families. And this is a whole unit, you guys, a plainclothes unit.
Wait, whose family?
Young
Herschel's?
Moose. Herschel was targeting Young Moose's whole family and harassing them. March 31st, 2016, feds pick up BPD officer on wiretap. A wiretap on a top heroin dealer named Antonio Shropshire tips federal investigators to the illegal activities of the gun drug task force, or gun, what was it? I'm drawing gun trace task force. Gun trace task force. The investigators to illegal activities of the gun trace task force.
Just say GTTF.
Shropshire had called GTTF officer Detective Mamadou Gondo after discovering a GPS tracking device on his car. Gondo instructs him to put the device on another car. This is an officer telling him to put a device on another car. Gondo later admits in court to protecting Shropshire and his crew. The FBI agents investigating into Gondo reveal more crimes by him and fellow GTTF members. Insane, right? They're literally gang members. So, robbery of Ronald Hamilton, July 2016, and his wife. GTTF officers grab ex-convict Ronald Hamilton and his wife as they leave the Home Depot. They take the couple to a police substation known as the Barn, where they're interrogated by Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, who poses as a U.S. attorney. The couple are then driven to their house in Carroll County, where the officers search their property, discovering tens of thousands of dollars in cash. The officers claim $20,000 for themselves and then call Carroll County officers, who seize the remaining $50,000 as alleged drug money. They never found drugs. Never found drugs.
They just straight up robbed him.
Robbed him.
Oh my gosh.
August 10th, 2016, Justice Department report on BPD release. After a thorough investigation prompted by Freddy Gray incident, the DOJ finds reasonable cause to believe BPD engages in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the Constitution or federal law. 7 BPD officers indicted on federal racketeering charges. U.S. Attorney Rod J. Rosenstein announces charges against 7 GTTF members: Detective Jamal Ram, Detective Daniel Herschel, Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, Detective Mamadou Gondo, Detective Evodio Hendricks, Detective Marcus Taylor, and Detective Maurice Ward. They're charged with racketeering, robbery, filing false paperwork, and overtime fraud. This is not about aggressive policing. It is about criminal conspiracy, Rosenstein said. Prosecuting criminals who work in police agencies is essential both to protect victims and support many honorable officers whose reputations they unfairly tarnish. Okay.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Prosecuting criminals who work in police agencies is essential both to protect victims and to support the many honorable officers whose reputations they unfairly tarnish.
Exactly.
Dude, you can't say it better. Like,
No.
that is why we have to look for these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you believe in your police officers, law enforcement, justice system, we have to actively seek for fraudulent behavior.
Because they're literally corrupting the whole system. They're ruining it, the whole thing.
And they are continuing the us versus them attitude, because then we have good cops out there who want to be a part of a community, who were on that 50 states and 50 positive things I talked about in the breaking news.
But their lives are at risk, for one, and
because of these guys.
Yeah.
And they're
at
hated.
Risk. They're hated.
The rest of society treats them as us versus them, and they're the them. They have no option but to back their other boys in blue because of all the bad things these people are doing. The dirty cops, dude. It is so horrible.
Yeah.
Hendricks and Ward take plea agreements. The last GTF officer arrested was the guy who was the sergeant before Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, because the whole time GTTF was out, they were all doing this. Rayam pleads guilty. Gondo pleads guilty. Detective murdered before testifying about GTTF. Yeah. Yeah. Officers responding to a call find Detective Sean Suter lying face down in a vacant lot in West Baltimore with a gun wound to his head and from his own weapon. He dies the following day, one day before he is scheduled to testify to a grand jury about the 2010 arrest of Umar Burley. Police have said Suter was not the target of the investigation. His death remains unsolved and is under investigation.
So they tried to make it look like he did it to himself.
Correct.
Jeez.
That's why I say they got it light. Baltimore PD did. I think the whole thing is corrupt. Here's a comment I didn't give originally. You know, when the Freddy Gray stuff happened and they said that they were charging them with second-degree murder because they did murder him for doing nothing illegal. Cops that were on refused to get out of their cars. So what they would do, and this was all across the whole city, is they stopped fighting crime. They just drove around in their cars or sat in a lot and would refuse to arrest anyone because they were mad, because they felt like these prosecutors were stepping on their toes, that they couldn't effectively police without beating somebody's head in. Is that not the craziest thing you've heard?
So they refuse to even help people or do anything?
They refuse to do anything. They refuse to do anything. And that's another reason why the GTTF excelled, because these guys were actively doing stuff because they were robbing them. They were taking the drug. Like, if they found a 10, let's say they found 10 kilos, okay? They were keeping 5, submitting 5, putting those 5 back on the street. Usually where there's drugs, there's money. They would find 100 grand, keep 70, submit 40, and split that up. Like, it was money, 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 money. Insane. And this is recent, 2017. Recent. You guys. So I despise, and there's a very good chance that that officer was ended because he was testifying against the GTTF.
Oh, that sounds like that's exactly what it was.
Some people claim he ended himself. I don't believe it. Don't believe it.
No, I mean, it sounds like they believe he was murdered.
Yep. So ultimately, former BPD gun squad Sergeant Wayne Jenkins admits to 7 robberies of detainees, total cash taken $252K plus drugs, faces up to 30 years in federal prison under plea agreement. He is 37 years old. So spends the rest of his life in jail, essentially, which great. I still think they got it light. I truly, truly, truly do. And in my opinion, to see corruption at this scale, they should have overturned that entire department, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They should have.
They should have. And I mean, it sounds like some of them were literally guilty of murder. So yeah, I would say they got it light.
Yeah. So I hope that you guys see how understand like the behaviors of the things that we're seeing here. You got to watch that show. It shows how these guys thought, how these guys felt, how they stuck up for each other and had each other's back. You know, there was one time that Wayne Jenkins ran somebody over, ran him over with a car. That car flipped, okay? To this day, they don't know why he ran him over, okay? Nobody knows. The guy didn't have a weapon on him. Wayne Jenkins calls somebody and says, hey, I'm in a bind. I need you to come do this thing for me. So an officer hauls butt over there and plants a gun. And Wayne Jenkins says, this guy pointed a gun at me, so I had no choice but to hit him to save my life. All these guys were taught to write reports where when they killed people, they had to make it seem like their life was in jeopardy.
Right.
If their life was in jeopardy, they're in the clear. Disgusting.
Absolutely disgusting.
And
it's scary.
It's scary, and it doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're black. This supersedes all political drama that's out there right now. These are police. The only thing that they care about, and I see, are boys and girls in blue, okay? And they aren't part of the society here. They aren't part of this community. They see the community as them, and they see themselves as us. And even cops that are not dirty will stick up for cops that are, because of that us versus them and zero community connection.
Yeah.
They are out there in a war. They are out there on the attack. They are out there militarized and seeking that war on drugs and thinks everybody is a target. And it's a problem. We ruined our police departments with the war on drugs, literally ruined them across the entire nation. And it sucks because I believe in our systems. I think we have good systems set up, but the training needs to change.
Yeah. I think that whole chasing the bad guy to thing is like not so great. You know what I mean?
It's awful.
It should be supporting the community.
It should be, yeah, you're a public servant. The community owns you.
Yeah.
Owns you. Not in a weird way that you got to do whatever they say, but you're there to serve them. You are there to serve them. They should be taking notes from that breaking news story I had. You know?
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's depressing. It's sad. It's scary. And it's recent. It's recent.
And it's a really,
this was a gang.
And it's a really big deal because it's like the whole police force in a major city. Like, that's what blows my mind. And the kind of criminal activities they were doing is literally straight up organized crime, gang stuff. Like,
they worked like 4 hours a day and would put like 8 hours of overtime, claiming they were working like 12 to 16 hours because they were catching so many bad guys, because they were criminals on the street and knew what was going on. So they'd go out for a day, catch a few guns and money and drugs, submit, 10% of it or whatever, and then claim that they worked 18 hours.
Jeez.
because no other cops would do anything.
Yeah.
Because the whole system is corrupt. Not necessarily all the people, but the system that was built here was corrupt because of flaws.
Well, also, good cops know, like, if I speak up, I'm going to be an outcast. I'm going to be condemned. I'm going to be shamed, if not hurt by these people. They were violent. They were murderers. They were scary people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you were a good cop there, I wouldn't want to speak up against. I would want to, but I would be afraid to.
And you know what's interesting?
I wouldn't want to get murdered.
I agree. You know, this goes back to my theory that everyone believes they're doing the right thing. They truly believed that they were good officers. They truly believed that they were helping the community by taking down these bad guys. And what does it matter? This money's just going to go get burned anyways. And that's how they saw themselves. They literally thought that they were good police officers. And that is terrifying. The fact that they felt like that badge made them above the law. That badge is the authority, not the person wearing it. The badge is the authority.
You really think they felt like good officers when running over an innocent person who didn't have a weapon, or robbing a couple that didn't have wasn't doing anything wrong, didn't have drugs or nothing?
I do. I truly do. I think that's how I think that's how flawed our police get, us versus them. You can see it in the Idaho 4 body cam footage. Look at how they were threatening those college students. They see those college kids as them, somebody other than them.
Yeah.
They're aggressive, dude. They came up there threatening all kinds of things when it was a simple noise complaint. Are you serious?
Yeah.
No threats need to be thrown, even when you're writing a citation. You know, I've had cops before because I had a lead foot for a long time before I was a traveling salesperson. But I've had cops before that were like, look, I'm sorry, but I have to give you a ticket. I need you to understand. You got to go slower here. You got to, and it's a conversation where he's being objective and logical and like, dude, you're asking me to do something I can't rightfully do because I'm the law, and I clocked you going 10 over. Don't ask me to let you off because that's not okay. You know, you can be an officer, hold people accountable, and speak to them with respect and authority.
Yeah. Authority doesn't have to mean aggressive.
It doesn't. But I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know what kind of, correlating things you heard in here in relation to the Idaho 4 case. Does any of it make you think of the Idaho 4 officers and some of the ways that they were acting, some of the things they were doing? Plainclothes officers. Baltimore did away with all their plainclothes officers after this. All of them.
Yeah, the plainclothes officers, when you first said that, I was like, plainclothes, like task force, Banfield, like, that's a bit weird.
It is. Dude, anybody can put on a police vest. That's not okay. I do not think plainclothes officers should ever be allowed.
No.
Ever.
No, not unless you're literally undercover infiltrating.
Correct.
Like a gang.
Yep. Not a task force.
No.
Yeah. I know.
Agreed.
But let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed that story. And I'm glad these cops got caught because I love our police and justice system country. And these guys are a stain and disgusting and deserve to be behind bars, having the hardest time possible with all the people that they wrongfully convicted and put in there. Let me know what you think.